You ever find yourself standing in your own kitchen, barefoot at 1:43 a.m., wondering when exactly your life started feeling like someone else's? Yeah, same. That night, I opened the fridge just to hear it hum. Not even hungry, just unsettled. You know that kind of silence where even the floorboards seem to breathe? That was my house. Too still, too clean, too quiet. He was already there when I walked in. Shirt wrinkled from sleep, hair still damp, probably showered after his late run. He glanced up from his tea like he'd been expecting me. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked, and I nodded. Because what else do you say? No one ever expects you to tell the truth at that hour. Especially not this truth. I remember the way the kitchen light hit his face. Soft, not dramatic, but enough to remind me he wasn't that awkward teenager anymore. My best friend's son. "Staying with us just for a while," she said, until he finished his internship across town. He'd always been quiet, respectful. No? There was something else. Not loud, just present. He poured me tea without asking. Jasmine, my favorite. How did he know? We sat in silence for a while. And honestly, I liked it. It wasn't strained like with my husband, where every pause felt like a question no one wanted to ask. This silence was warm, intact. He tapped the rim of his mug. "This house doesn't feel like yours," he said suddenly. I blinked. "What do you mean?" He looked over, that calm, unsettling kind of gaze. "It's beautiful. Everything's in its place, but none of it feels lived in." And there it was. One sentence, and I felt naked. Not physically, obviously, but exposed. Like someone finally read the subtext in all my smiles. I don't even know how I responded. Something defensive, I'm sure. Something about being organized. But I felt it. The way the air shifted. I got up to rinse my mug, even though it was still half full, and reached past him to grab the sponge, my fingers brushing his hand. He didn't pull away, and neither did I. God, that moment. That stupid split-second moment. I looked at him. He looked at me. No music, no background noise. Just the buzz of the fridge and the ache in my chest. He stepped closer, not aggressively, just like someone who wasn't afraid. And then he kissed me. Software. Quick. Question mark at the end of it. And I didn't slap him. I didn't scold him. I just stood there like an idiot, heart hammering like I was 17 again. Why didn't I move? That question still haunts me. Not because I didn't want to stop it, but because part of me, a bigger part that I'm proud of, didn't want it to stop at all. I stepped back eventually. Said I should go upstairs. He didn't follow. Just nodded like he understood everything without needing words. And maybe he did. Maybe that was the scariest part. Upstairs, my husband stirred in bed, reached for me, half asleep, kissed my shoulder and murmured, "You feel different tonight." Like his body knew what his brain couldn't name. I lay there staring at the ceiling, still tasting jasmine and confusion on my lips. My heart raced and sank at the same time, and I hated myself for it. But I also felt alive. That's the worst part, isn't it? When the thing that ruins you is the same thing that reminds you you're still breathing. I closed my eyes, thinking it would pass. That I'd wake up tomorrow and laugh at the absurdity of it all. But I didn't. Because I remembered something. Something ridiculous. When I walked into the kitchen, I hadn't closed the curtain behind me. The window faces the neighbor's house. They have one of those motion sensor cameras pointed right at our kitchen, and the light had blinked red. Once. I froze. The air drained from my lungs. Did someone see? Or worse, record? Was that light always there? Was it blinking for someone else? God, why didn't I pull the damn curtain? I told myself to breathe. It's nothing, just paranoia. But I knew the moment was real. And if it was real for me, it could have been real for someone else too. I stared at the ceiling again. I could still feel the ghost of his hand on mine, the heat of his breath when he leaned in. I didn't know what scared me more, the kiss or the fact that I wanted another. So tell me, what does it say about a woman who feels more seen in a 10-second kitchen moment than in 20 years of marriage? I didn't sleep. Not a minute. Just lay there listening to the sound of my choices humming through the walls. There's something incredibly intimate about silence, isn't there? Not the awkward kind. The kind where two people say everything without saying a word. That morning, I should have known better than to invite him along, but it just slipped out. I'm heading to the car wash, then grocery store, I said aloud, more to the air than to anyone in particular. He was in the hallway, tightening his sneakers, earbuds dangling from his shirt. I can come, he said, casual, like it was nothing. I nodded. And that's how it started. My husband tossed me the keys without looking up from his laptop. Don't forget the receipt, he added, and check the back tires. I think they're low. Right. Tires, tasks, marital maintenance. We didn't talk much on the way to the wash. He scrolled his phone. I adjusted the mirrors 3 times just to have something to do. The vacuum station was already full when we pulled in, so we opted for the drive-through wash. You know, the ones with rainbow foam and brushes that sound like a rainstorm trying too hard. He offered to clean the windshield while we waited. Said it was streaky. I handed him a rag and spray bottle, and as he leaned over, the hose slipped, splashing me straight across the neck and chest. Cold. Sudden. I gasped. He froze. For half a second, our eyes locked. He looked genuinely panicked, but also something else. His lips parted slightly. I grabbed a napkin and dabbed my shirt, laughing it off like it was no big deal. All good, I said quickly, though it really wasn't. My skin still tingled, the kind of tingle that doesn't fade with air drying. We got back in the car, both a little quieter than before. He connected his phone to the stereo and hit play. A playlist started. Soft acoustic tracks, mellow but emotional. 3 songs in, and I realized they were all mine. My favorites. My comfort songs. The ones I kept in my Spotify private folder, because who wants their sadness to have public timestamps? I didn't say anything. Just stared ahead, windshield wipers squeaking as the last soap slid off. Did he mean to do that? Was it coincidence? Next stop was the salon. I hadn't booked anything, just wandered in on impulse. You have a 10-minute wait, the receptionist said, smiling too brightly. I sat down, scrolled through my phone, heart still oddly unsettled. He texted, "Need anything?" I replied, "All good. Just a trim." But that wasn't true, was it? 10 minutes turned into 15. I asked the stylist to cut off a few inches, maybe add layers. "Freshen it up," I mumbled. She smiled like she knew exactly what that meant. As she blow-dried, I caught my reflection in the mirror and flinched. Not because of the hair, but because I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. Something in her eyes looked lit. Not like fire, like friction. My phone vibrated again. I'm nearby. Look left. I turned my head. Through the glass storefront, just past the row of parked cars and a display of overpriced shampoos, he sat at a small cafe table, coffee cup in hand, sunglasses on, watching me. Not staring, not smirking, just watching. Why did that make my stomach drop? I looked away immediately, felt my pulse race. My stylist said something about layers. I nodded without hearing. My gaze drifted back to the glass. He was still there, sitting so calmly, like this was just another Tuesday. I didn't wave, didn't smile, didn't move. But I didn't look away either. When she finished drying, I paid, tipped generously, too generously maybe, and stepped out with my heart thudding in my throat. He was gone, vanished like nothing happened. And yet I felt it, this invisible triangle stretching between me, him, and the man I was married to. No sharp corners, no spoken rules, but it was there. Growing. That ride home? It was just noise. The city, the tires, the wind. We didn't speak. I dropped him off 2 blocks before the house. His idea. "I'll walk," he said. "Need air?" "Sure, air." Back home, my husband looked up from his laptop. "You changed your hair," he said, barely glancing. "Looks different." Different. Different was becoming my middle name, and maybe I liked it. But what if he was still out there, watching? Because honestly, would I even mind? There's this split second right before it happens, when your brain screams don't do it, but your body already has. It's not some movie scene with music swelling or fireworks, no. It's a soft breath. A glance too long. Fingers that hesitate but don't pull away. That's how it was that day. Quiet. Dangerous in a whisper kind of way. It started with a knock on the bedroom door. "Hey, sorry to bother, but the water pressure upstairs is weird again," he said, standing just outside the frame, towel over one shoulder, wet hair curling slightly at the ends. "Mind checking? I think the regulator's stuck." I should have sent him a YouTube link. Should have told him to ask my husband, the actual handyman in this house. But I didn't. "Sure," I said. Just like that. We walked upstairs, him ahead, me pretending not to notice the way his shirt clung to his back. The bathroom smelled like his body wash. The one with eucalyptus and something vaguely citrusy. The kind you buy for the scent, not the ingredients. I crouched down, turned the handle slowly, half expecting it to just groan like usual. Instead, the damn thing exploded. Water shot out full blast, soaking my sleeves and drenching the front of my blouse in seconds. I shrieked. He laughed. Not loud, but this low, surprised chuckle that somehow made it worse. "Here, wait." He fumbled for a towel. I reached too, our hands colliding mid-grab. Wet fabric, wet skin. A pause. Just long enough. He gently draped the towel around my shoulders, not like handing it over, but actually wrapped it. His arms hovered, warm, almost hesitant. "You're freezing," he said quietly, and I swear I could feel every syllable through my skin. I looked up. Big mistake. Because in that moment, with his breath close and water still dripping from my hair, I forgot everything else. Marriage, age, logic, time. All of it just evaporated, like steam on a bathroom mirror. And then it happened. The kiss wasn't dramatic. It didn't lunge or grab. It was slow, deliberate, like he was giving me a chance to stop it. And I didn't. Our lips touched, damp, warm, and I felt something inside me give way. A door I'd locked years ago suddenly swinging open like it had never been closed at all. Why didn't I stop it? That question came too late. A second passed. Maybe 3. We didn't speak, didn't move, just stood there breathing into each other. Then, the front door slammed. Hard. I jolted. His eyes widened. That sound, sharp, real, immediate, broke the illusion like a dropped glass. Without a word, I turned, slipping past him down the hallway, heart pounding so loud I swore it echoed off the walls. My socks skidded slightly on the wood floor, water dripping from my elbows. I ducked into the master bedroom and closed the door. Not slammed, but fast. Inside, I stood still. My reflection in the closet mirror looked flushed, disheveled. Hair clinging to my neck, lips slightly parted. I grabbed another towel and pressed it to my face like it could erase the kiss. The thought, the heat, the memory. But it was no use. It wasn't just physical. It was everything under my skin. I could hear the front door creak open again, then close gently. Footsteps. Not his. My husband called up the stairs, voice neutral. "Who turned on the shower?" I didn't answer. Seconds passed. Then, the hallway floor creaked. Our bedroom door opened halfway. He stood there holding a grocery bag in one hand, keys still in the other. "I thought I fixed that last week," he said, eyeing the towel in my hands, the way I avoided looking at him. I forced a small laugh. "Yeah, must have slipped again." He didn't laugh, Just looked at me. Not angry, not suspicious. Just looked. Too long. That stare. The one that doesn't ask out loud but tells you it already knows. I turned away, pretending to fold clothes that didn't need folding. He set the bag on the dresser, then walked out without a word. And I stood there, soaked in more ways than one, wondering if he knew. If he felt it. That shift. That edge. That invisible crack where something good used to live. You ever get the sense you're standing at the very edge of a cliff? Not pushed, not pulled, just choosing not to step back? Because right then, I think I did. I always hated the phrase "just like old times," mostly because it's rarely true. People throw it around like you can recreate the past with candles and matching plates. You can't. And that night, the one with the so-called family dinner, was proof. It started with my husband's sudden burst of enthusiasm. "Let's do something nice," he said, casually flipping through the mail. "Invite your friend over, the one with the son." I blinked halfway through unloading groceries. "You mean them?" "Yeah, make a whole thing of it. I'll grill." It took everything in me to nod and smile like that suggestion didn't send a cold ripple down my back. But I said yes. Of course I did. Saturday came quicker than I expected. I woke up feeling wired, anxious. Not because of the event itself. I've hosted dozens of these things. But because I didn't know how to look at him across the table without remembering the kiss, the steam, the silence after. I cooked too much, as usual. Marinated chicken, chopped herbs, even baked a pie from scratch like I had something to prove. To who, though? Still don't know. I set the table with real napkins, not the paper ones we used every day. Lit a candle I'd been saving for months. The kind that smells expensive even if it's not. They arrived right on time. My friend in her usual breezy dress and oversized earrings, her son in a simple t-shirt and jeans. Clean, quiet, familiar in all the wrong ways. He hugged me. Friendly, brief, polite, and I felt it. That flicker. It was still there. My husband greeted them like nothing had changed, and maybe for him, nothing had. He poured drinks, told a joke about the neighbor's lawn, even gave her son a playful slap on the back when they stepped out to light the grill together. Meanwhile, I was inside checking the potatoes for the 5th time. When I walked out to the patio, they were all laughing. My friend had her sunglasses on even though the sun was going down, and her son was sitting directly across from my spot at the table. Great. We ate, we drank. The conversation drifted between politics and old high school stories. I nodded when I was supposed to, laughed at the appropriate pauses, but inside? Static. Just this low hum of get through this, get through this, get through this. And then she pulled out the photos. "I found these last week in a drawer," she said, tossing a handful of glossy memories on the table. "Back when we were fun, remember? There was one of us in college holding plastic cups on a beach. One of her pregnant, wearing overalls. One of me, about 15 years younger, laughing so hard my eyes were nearly closed. I froze. Because I remembered that day. Not because of the weather or the dress I wore, but because it was the first time I questioned if I'd made the right choice. Even back then. He picked up that photo. Looked at it longer than he should have. Our fingers brushed when I reached for it, and for a second, the world tilted. Not dramatically. Just enough for me to notice. My husband leaned in. "You were always beautiful," he said, nodding toward the photo like it was a compliment. But the way he said it, past tense, made something in me cave in a little. Later, in the kitchen, I caught him watching me. Not my husband. Him, my friend's son. He didn't speak, just leaned against the doorframe while I scrubbed a pan that didn't need scrubbing. The tension between us was unbearable. Not fiery, just tight. Like we'd been wrapped too close and couldn't shift without tearing something. "Need help?" he asked, barely above a whisper. I shook my head. "I've got it." He didn't leave. My friend came in a moment later, laughing about something from outside. She kissed her son on the cheek, pinched his arm playfully. You still hanging around the kitchen? Thought you hated dishes." He shrugged. Just didn't want to miss anything. And my chest burned, because I knew what he meant. When they left, my husband turned to me, wiping his hands with a dish towel. "That was nice," he said, like old times. There it was. I smiled, and it cracked me right down the middle. Because I was a liar now. Not the exciting kind, not the wild and passionate kind. Just a tired woman wearing her own betrayal like perfume she couldn't wash off. I sat on the edge of the tub that night, feet on cold tile, lights off. No tears, no big dramatic scene. Just me, and the sound of nothing. And for the first time in weeks, I wished I could rewind to before. Before the car wash, before the music, before I said yes. But I couldn't. So I just sat there, hands in my lap, asking myself one thing. How did I get here? You ever walk into a moment so slowly, so stupidly, that afterward you wonder if you set the whole thing up on purpose? Like maybe you didn't trip, maybe you leaned. That night, I didn't just lean. I fell. He left around 9:40 p.m., said he was going for a walk, needed air. He always said that when things got tense, and after dinner, the air in the house had thickened like gravy left too long on the stove. My husband was already upstairs, half asleep with a podcast buzzing through his earbuds. I was sitting in the living room alone, staring at the candle wax puddling on the coffee table. It felt symbolic somehow. Of course it did. 10 minutes passed. Maybe 12. I stood, poured what was left of the wine into my glass, didn't even bother to swirl it. My feet carried me to the hallway without checking in with my brain. You know that feeling? Where your body acts like it's chasing something and all your thoughts just trail behind like panicked parents? Yeah, that. I stepped outside barefoot. Bad idea. The cement was still warm from the day, but the air had turned sharp. I wrapped my arms around myself, not cold, just raw. I knew where he'd be. The side steps. The spot between our unit and the old duplex with the broken motion light. And there he was. Hood up, earphones dangling, sitting on the third step like he'd been waiting for me. Or maybe not. Maybe I just needed to believe that. He looked up, didn't smile, didn't move. "I shouldn't be here," I said, barely above a whisper. "You already are," he replied, just as quiet. I sat down 2 steps above him. Enough space for decency, not enough to feel safe. The kind of space where people pretend there's nothing between them, even when everything is. "I keep telling myself to stop this," I admitted. He glanced sideways. "Then stop." God, the way he said it, like a dare and a warning wrapped into one. I looked at him, and in that split second, every reason not to kiss him dissolved. He didn't move. Neither did I, until we both did. He stood slowly, and I followed. We met in the narrow gap between the steps and the wall, and I swear the silence got louder. He leaned in, careful, hesitant. This kiss wasn't explosive. It wasn't desperate. It was quiet, intentional. Like 2 people whispering secrets into each other's skin. And this time, I kissed him back. Not half. Not hesitant. All in. I let my hands rest near his chest, fingers brushing fabric. Nothing bold, nothing reckless, but everything wrong. Then, a sound. Not a crash, not a yell. Just a click. The electric hum of the hallway light flicking on. We pulled apart fast. Too fast. Like children caught with hands in the candy jar. Except this candy wasn't sweet. It was bitter. And burning. I looked up toward the apartment entrance. Empty. But the little red light on the intercom camera? Blinking. My stomach dropped. "You think it caught?" "I don't know." I cut in, voice shaky. "I don't care. I need to go." And I did. I didn't run, but every step felt like a sprint. Upstairs, the hallway felt colder, quieter, like it knew something I didn't. I got inside and locked the door. Tried to steady my breath, but it didn't work. My husband was in the kitchen, sorting through junk mail like it was a to-do list that mattered. He didn't look up. "Someone turned on the hallway light," he said, almost absently. "Probably tripped the camera again." I froze. He glanced at me. "I thought you were upstairs already." I cleared my throat. I went out for a minute, just needed some air." He raised an eyebrow. Not suspicious, not accusing, just watching. And that was worse somehow. I walked past him, straight to the bathroom, splashed water on my face like it would change anything. It didn't. Back in the bedroom, I turned off the lights and sat on the edge of the bed, still dressed, still shaking. Did he see? Would he check the camera? What if someone else already had? And then the thought hit me like a brick through a windshield. What if I wanted him to? I wrapped myself in a throw blanket and curled up on top of the covers. My husband didn't come to bed for another hour. When he did, he barely looked at me. Just kissed my head out of habit, turned off his lamp, and pulled the blanket over his shoulder like nothing had changed. But everything had. I lay there, wide awake, replaying the kiss like a scene I knew would ruin me, and wondering why it still made my heart race. Why does something that feels right come with so much wrong? There's a specific kind of silence between married people. Not the peaceful kind, like a shared Sunday coffee or folding laundry in sink. This one's sharp, controlled, like standing in a room full of gas and knowing someone's holding a match. That was us the next morning. He didn't say a word about the hallway light. Not during breakfast, not while scrolling his news app, not even when I dropped a glass and muttered shit under my breath. He just looked at me. Not surprised, not annoyed, just looked. And that look? It said too much. Around noon, I went out for groceries I didn't need. Drove with the windows down even though it was too cold. Parked at the far end of the lot, sat there staring at my hands on the steering wheel like they belonged to someone else. I didn't cry. Crying would have made it too real, and I wasn't ready for real. Not yet. Back home, the tension wrapped around everything. Even the dog, who normally barked at the doorbell like a lunatic, tiptoed past us like she didn't want to pick sides. He worked from the home office all day. I cleaned things that were already clean. The bathroom sink, the stovetop, the inside of the fridge, which, by the way, is completely unnecessary unless you're avoiding something, which I very much was. Then, sometime after 4, my phone buzzed. "Leaving Friday. Thanks again for letting me stay." Short, polite, final. It felt like being dismissed. Like the end of a movie where you realize you weren't the main character, just the distraction between plot points. I stared at the message for a long time. Didn't reply. Not right away. Instead, I walked into the bedroom, sat on the floor with my back against the closet, and waited for some kind of feeling to rise. Anger, guilt, regret. But all I got was this dull, cold weight in my chest, like grief without a name. That night, I made dinner. Not fancy, but enough to pretend things were fine. Baked salmon, asparagus, a glass of cheap red. He joined me at the table, thanked me like always. He even asked about my day. And I lied. Easily, effortlessly. I told him I'd started reading again. Said I went to the craft store. Mentioned a neighbor who got new patio lights. All harmless, all pointless. But he didn't press. Just nodded. Chewed slowly, sipped his wine like it didn't taste metallic with all that truth missing from the room. After we ate, I loaded the dishwasher and watched him walk to the living room. He sat on the couch with the remote in one hand and his phone in the other. Routine. Predictable. Familiar. But something was off. I couldn't put my finger on it at first. Then I noticed. He hadn't turned the TV on. He just sat there, scrolling, then stopping. His screen lit up his face in this soft glow, and when he looked up at me, across the kitchen bar, through the dim light, I flinched. There was something new in his eyes. Not anger, not even suspicion. It was colder than that. Recognition. That's the word. Like he finally saw me. Not the wife version, not the chore doer, not the placeholder between business trips. but the one who'd shifted. The one who now carried something else in her silence. I dried my hands on a dish towel and left the kitchen, heart knocking around in my chest like it had nowhere to go. Upstairs, I sat at the vanity and stared at my reflection, trying to read my own face the way he just had. And I hated what I saw. Not because it looked older or tired, though it did, but because it looked divided. Like half of me was waiting for something, and the other half already knew it was too late. Later, in bed, I reached for him. Not like before, just human contact. His arm was warm, steady. He didn't pull away, but he didn't hold me either, and that felt worse than rejection. "Good night," I whispered. He kissed my forehead, familiar, measured, and it hit me. I hadn't been kissed like me in weeks. Not like the woman he used to want, just like the one he lived with. Like a roommate with shared tax forms. Somewhere in the dark, I wondered, had he checked the camera? Had he seen the kiss? Was he waiting for me to confess? Or to self-destruct? God, I don't know which is worse. I turned to face the wall. My phone buzzed once more. Same name, same sender, new message. "Don't worry, no one saw anything." But I didn't believe it. Not for a second. There's this belief people have that when the truth comes out, it explodes, loud, violent, that it knocks things off the walls or sends someone screaming down a hallway. But in my experience, the worst truths arrive quietly, casually, as if they've always been sitting there waiting for you to finally notice. It was just after lunch when he came into the kitchen, holding something between his fingers. A small black flash drive. No expression on his face. No urgency. He held it out like it was nothing more than a missing pen. "This came in the mail," he said. No note. Just this. I turned away from the sink, drying my hands on a dish towel I suddenly couldn't hold still. "What is it?" He didn't answer. He walked to the living room, opened his laptop, and plugged the flash drive in. Everything he did was calm. Too calm. That kind of controlled stillness that comes after someone already knows the answer and is just waiting for you to stop pretending. I followed, hesitant, my legs stiff and wooden. The laptop screen lit up, and there it was. One single file. No title. Just a time and date. He double-clicked it. I knew before the image even appeared. And there we were. Me and him. Not my husband. Sitting together on the stairs in the dark, the faint glow from the hallway light catching just enough of our faces to make everything perfectly clear. The kiss wasn't long. No sound. No wild gestures. Just a moment. Enough to say everything I had spent weeks trying to ignore. When the video ended, my husband didn't speak. He didn't turn his head. He just stared at the screen for a long, unbearable second before leaning back into the couch cushion like it had finally confirmed something he'd already accepted. I opened my mouth and then closed it again. What could I possibly say? "I knew," he said finally, his voice flat. "I just didn't know how far you'd go." I stood there like a child caught sneaking out after curfew. Except this wasn't about breaking a rule. It was about breaking something we'd spent half a lifetime building. He reached to the side of the coffee table, picked up a folder I hadn't seen before, and laid it gently next to the laptop. Divorce papers. His signature already filled in. My side blank. "You talked to a lawyer?" I whispered, barely able to hear myself. 3 weeks ago. That meant he'd known, long before the video. I couldn't even bring myself to ask why he hadn't said anything. I already knew the answer. He was waiting to see if I would stop myself. If I'd choose us. I hadn't. He stood up slowly, glanced at the screen one more time, and then looked at me. And there was something in his eyes I hadn't seen before. Not rage, not betrayal. Something colder, like I'd become a stranger he didn't owe compassion to anymore. But what he said next hit harder than any screaming ever could. "She knows." I blinked. "Who?" He didn't flinch. "Your friend." The floor tilted under me. My knees actually buckled a little, but I stayed standing. "She saw the footage before I did. That hallway camera? It saves automatically to the cloud. The light blinking red? That wasn't just for show. I felt the blood drain from my face. My mouth opened, but I didn't know where to start. There were too many layers now. The lie I told him, the silence I gave her, the truth that was never really hidden at all. She didn't send it to me, he added, which means she was giving you a chance to tell the truth first. He walked out of the room without another word. Up the stairs. No door slam. No last look. Just gone. I sat down on the edge of the couch, hands trembling in my lap. The laptop screen had gone dark, but I could still feel the echo of that moment. The kiss, the camera, the undeniable. My phone buzzed. Her name on the screen. We need to talk. I didn't open it. I couldn't. All I could think was, why did I let it get this far? And worse, did I ever really want to stop it? There's a strange kind of silence that fills a house when someone's about to leave it for good. It doesn't come all at once. It creeps in through the corners, settles under furniture, lingers in the hallway where laughter used to live. That was the kind of silence I woke up to the morning she left. The front door was already cracked open, and the sound of suitcases wheeling over concrete echoed faintly in the air like some distant warning bell. I hadn't gotten out of bed yet. I didn't want to. I just lay there staring at the ceiling fans spinning above me, watching the blades blur, trying to remember when things last felt still. She didn't say goodbye in person. And really, how could she? Instead, she left a note on the entryway table. A plain white envelope, no name. Inside, 2 short lines. I saw everything. I waited for you to tell me. You didn't. No signature. She didn't need one. Her son was already outside, throwing his duffel into the trunk of a car I didn't recognize. A friend, maybe. Or a rideshare. I watched from behind the blinds, half hidden, like a coward. He didn't look back toward the house. He didn't scan the windows. He just got in and closed the door. And that was it. Done. What hit me hardest wasn't that he didn't say goodbye. It was how easy it looked for him. Like I had been a detour, not a destination. A moment in a chapter he didn't plan on rereading. Back in the kitchen, the coffee pot was still warm. My husband had already left for work. No note, no goodbye. Just an empty mug in the sink and the faint smell of cologne near the back door. He'd started wearing a new one. I noticed. I wondered if that meant something. Probably did. I sat at the table, staring at the steam rising from my untouched cup. I didn't cry. That would have been a relief, honestly. But I was past the point of crying. What I felt now was colder, drier, like grief had calcified into something hard and sharp. My phone buzzed once, face down on the table. I didn't check it. Then again. Another message. Another vibration that made the mug tremble slightly against the wood. Finally, I flipped it over. A text from someone I hadn't spoken to in years, a mutual friend of hers and mine. Someone on the periphery of all this. Heard what happened. Didn't expect it from you. That was all it said. No question mark. No invitation to explain. Just a statement dressed as a knife. I didn't respond. What could I say that wouldn't make things worse? Eventually, I stood up, poured the coffee down the drain, and turned the pot off. Small things. Manageable things. Things I could control. I walked through the house slowly, like I was touring a museum of my own mistakes. The couch still had an imprint where he used to sit. The hallway mirror held the ghost of the version of me who hadn't ruined everything yet. Upstairs, the closet was half empty. My husband had taken his suits, his running shoes, his watch, left the things that didn't matter, or maybe just the ones that hurt less to leave behind. Later that afternoon, I packed a single suitcase. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stay. Not there. Not inside the echo chamber of everything I'd lost. Before locking the door behind me, I left the flash drive on the kitchen counter. No note. No explanation. Just the truth in its purest, ugliest form. As I drove away, I didn't check the rearview mirror. I couldn't. But somewhere between the stoplight and the freeway ramp, I asked myself, not out loud, just quietly, deep in that place where guilt and clarity live, would I still have done it if no one ever found out? And God help me, I didn't know the answer. The new apartment was smaller than I expected, not just in square footage, but in soul. Everything echoed. The click of my shoes on the floor, the opening of drawers, even the zip of my suitcase as I pulled it open to unpack. It wasn't home. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The bedroom was barely bigger than a closet. One small window, one scuffed-up dresser left behind by the last tenant, and walls painted the color of surrender. A kind of pale beige that doesn't commit to being warm or cold. It just exists. I set my things down on the bed, a mattress on a metal frame that groaned when I sat on it, and stared at the empty space. There was no sound, no movement from the hallway. Just me. Just this. I reached into my bag and pulled out the only picture I brought with me. It was old, taken before smartphones, back when we still used film and waited days to find out if our smiles were blurry. It showed me standing in the sun, hair tied back, laughing at something out of frame. He was beside me, my husband, before he became the man who couldn't look me in the eye anymore. I set it face down in the drawer. The fridge buzzed when it kicked on, startling me. I hadn't stocked it yet. I hadn't done anything, really. Just signed the lease, nodded when the landlord asked if I needed help moving in, and said I was fine. It was a lie. Of course it was. But it was one I'd learned to say with enough grace that people believed me. Sitting on the edge of the bed, I picked up my phone and scrolled through old messages. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. Closure, maybe, or some proof that everything I'd destroyed had been for something. But all I found was a trail of words that meant less now than they did when I read them the first time. I paused on his name. The last message from him was still there. Don't worry, no one saw anything. He had no idea how wrong he was. I hovered over the thread. I could have deleted it. I should have. But my thumb froze. Because part of me, the worst part, still wanted to believe he missed me. That he was sitting somewhere thinking about that moment on the stairs, about the kiss, about how I leaned in just as much as he did. But nothing came. No new messages, no apology, no closure, only the memory. And isn't that the cruelest thing about mistakes? They don't vanish. They replay over and over until you start questioning what was real and what was just the version of yourself you wanted to be. Eventually, I set the phone down and opened the small suitcase I hadn't finished unpacking. Sweaters, one pair of jeans, a scarf I hadn't worn in years but couldn't bring myself to throw away. I placed them neatly in the drawer beside the photo. The final item I pulled out was a letter. Not mailed, just handwritten. Folded into quarters and taped shut. His handwriting. My husband's. I didn't open it. I couldn't. Not yet. I slid it into the back of the drawer behind the old scarf and closed it gently. Standing in the center of the room, I took a deep breath. The kind that hurts a little on the way out. I looked around. No books, no rugs, no framed pictures. Just blankness. And me. You know, I always thought consequences came with a bang. A confrontation. A dramatic scene with shouting and slamming doors. But this was worse. This was nothing. This was walking into a room full of silence and realizing that silence is yours now. That no one is coming to fill it or fix it or ask you to explain. Because they've already left. And maybe, deep down, they already knew who you were before you did. I sat down on the bed. It creaked again. I didn't move. Would I go back if I could? Would I change the night in the kitchen? The car wash? The stairs? I don't know. And that's the part I'll live with now. Not the guilt. Not even the loss. Just the not knowing.